So, hello everyone, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, the Hindu news analysis. Today is Sunday, 30th June 2024, and we have some important articles from different newspapers, right? So, all these articles that we are going to discuss are very, very important from the examination perspective. And before actually discussing all those articles, we all knew that yesterday I have given one important prelims practice question. The question is about mainland zero, and with reference to this mainland zero, consider the following statements. Remember that about mainland zero we have already discussed about this in our previous lectures, and if you regularly follow our lectures in the past, you can clearly answer this question without any doubt. So why? Because I have discussed about this mainland zero species in a much more detailed manner, right? So if you look into the statements, it is protected under CITES Appendix 1, and when we talk about this CITES, it is Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. Now I have already explained that this mainland zero is placed in Appendix 1, not Appendix 2, right? So it is placed in Appendix 1. So if you know about this, you can clearly eliminate this option, and if you eliminated option statement 1, so you will left with the only statement B. And again, when we talk about the distribution of mainland zero as a species, it is mainly located in Himalayas, especially the higher elevation of Himalayas in Bhutan and Southeast Asia and China. Yes, this is also absolutely correct statement. However, there is another species called Himalayan zero. So this Himalayan zero is the mainland zero's subspecies. Okay, so Himalayan zero is the subspecies of mainland zero, and in fact this Himalayan zero is also the official state animal of Mizoram, right? So this is an official state animal of Mizoram, and therefore statement 2 and statement 3 are absolutely correct, but statement 1 is not correct. And if you look into this explanation part of this question, and when you look into this explanation, this mainland zero is a territorial animal or a territorial species. It lives either alone or in small groups with the other zero species. And in fact, when we talk about this mainland zero, so it also has one subspecies which is Himalayan zero. So this Himalayan zero is the official state animal of the Indian state of Mizoram. So therefore the third statement is absolutely correct. And mainland zero, it is native to Himalayas, Southeast Asia and China, right? So it is a native to the all these regions. And apart from that, when we talk about the conservation status of this zero species, especially the mainland zero species, when you talk about this IUCN status, it is listed in the vulnerable category, right? So it is a vulnerable species. And apart from IUCN status, as I have already told you, that this is Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. So with respect to this Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, so it is listed in Appendix 1, right? So it is listed in Appendix 1 but not Appendix 2 that is given in the question. So therefore this statement is clearly incorrect, right? I mean, the first statement is incorrect because the statement says that it is listed in the Appendix 2. Now next question, for this is a prelims practice question for today. The question is, Pench Tiger Reserve, which is recently seen in news, is located in which of the following state? So your options are A, Assam, and B, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, C, Odisha, and D, Karnataka, right? So if you follow this lecture today, you can clearly answer this question without any doubt, right? So this question was already asked, especially about the Pench Tiger Reserve. There was already a question in UPSC prelims, so therefore I advise you to carefully follow this lecture and you can answer this question by the end of this lecture, right? So first article that we are going to discuss, it is also very, very important article, that recently a Pench Tiger Reserve in Maharashtra launches the first advanced artificial intelligence system for forest and fire detection. So this is very, very important. It is in the context of forest fires. We all knew about this. Forest fires, both anthropogenic factors causes these forest fires, and along with the anthropogenic factors, there are also some natural factors which causes the forest fires. Okay, so both anthropogenic and natural causes. However, the biggest factor in forest fires is climate change, increasing global temperatures. Climate change and increasing global temperatures is one of the main reason for the forest fires. And in fact, when we talk about the anthropogenic factors, tourism and irresponsible tourism, campfires, and the cigarette butts, so all these things are the major causes of forest fires. And in fact, when you look into the consequences of such forest fires or wildfires, they used to have a huge consequences. Firstly, we need to talk about the biodiversity loss. Okay, so this will be the major consequence, biodiversity loss, because forest fires will lead to the death of flora and fauna species in that particular ecosystem. And secondly, it would also release harmful gases into the atmosphere, right? So there is also no doubt that it will release harmful gases into the atmosphere, and releasing harmful gases would contribute to air pollution and even impacts human health. And after that, the particular wildfires or the forest fires may also result in increasing temperatures over a period of time in that particular region, and this would also increases the human wildlife conflict as well, because the wildfires or the forest fires very often lead to the fragmentation of the habitat of these wild flora and fauna species, and because of that reason it will lead to the human wildlife conflicts, and that is the major issue here. Okay, when we talk about this context of this particular article, it is that wildfires or the forest fires is a major cause of concern across India. There is no doubt about that. But when we use this artificial intelligence system to detect the forest fires at an early stage, then we can prevent such a forest fires becoming a major wildfire spreading across a vast areas in the forest, right? So we can do something to prevent such forest fires spreading to other parts when we detect them in a much efficient manner. So therefore, the Pench Tiger Reserve in Maharashtra launched this first advanced artificial intelligence system for this forest fire detection. And this particular artificial intelligence system will, or it can differentiate between what constitutes smoke and what is clouds, right? So it can easily detect what is smoke and what is clouds, and thereby it could minimize the false alarms, and it could also give regular alerts, and those alerts are also most accurate and reliable, so that the forest personnel can immediately swing into the action and prevent the forest fires spreading to the other parts of the forest. Okay, so they can extinguish such forest fires at an early stage, so thereby protecting the habitat, protecting the biodiversity of that particular forest areas, right? So how this will artificial intelligence system will actually help? And when we look into the traditional methods of detecting the forest fires at an early stage, forest departments usually relied on a satellite based alerts for forest fire detection, right? So they would actually try to detect these forest fires in particular forest area through the satellite based alerts. So very often these satellite based alerts are not that much reliable, and they are also not accurate, and at the same time they would not give the timely alerts to the forest department about the forest fires, and that is where these forest fires are spreading to the other parts at a quicker pace, especially during the summers, right? So therefore, when we have installed this artificial intelligence system, so this particular system can easily differentiate between smoke and clouds, because this artificial intelligence system has the infrared inbuilt infrared device, right? So it has an inbuilt infrared device, and this particular infrared device can work day and night 24 into 7. So this could actually work 24 into 7 and thereby enabling nighttime detection also. So when we look into the satellite images, it is very difficult to get accurate and reliable data about the forest fires in a particular forest area, right? But this particular infrared device which is installed in this artificial intelligence system can accurately detect these forest fires even during the night time also. And the other advantage is that they can easily detect the difference between clouds and also the forest fires, or we can say smoke. So thereby there would be minimal false alarms. Okay, so because it could easily differentiate, so it has the ability to easily differentiate between what constitutes clouds and what constitutes smoke. When you go to the forest areas or the mountainous areas, so generally over those mountainous areas you can see the smoke, smoke or smog like conditions, right? So therefore it would be very difficult through the satellite images to identify what is smoke, what is smoke or what is clouds. So therefore it is much more advanced to differentiate what constitutes smoke and what constitutes clouds, and thereby it would minimize the false alarms, and at the same time it also ensures that the alerts both accurate and much more reliable. And apart from that, when we talk about this artificial intelligence system which is having the features of inbuilt infrared devices, or which has infrared device, so it will actually receive data from the temperature in that particular forest area, and the precipitation and the conditions of wind prevailed over this region, because all these factors play a very important role in spreading forest fires. So therefore analyzing this particular data, so with the past fire incidents, the system will actually forecast the probable future fire incidents also in shorter term by analyzing temperature, precipitation and wind conditions, so that the forest departments would be on high alert, because it would already predict and forecast such forest fires. So therefore the forest department would be much more cautious, and forest department would also be ready in case any such fire took place, and they could immediately extinguish that fire and it will not spread to other parts. So therefore this system can also be integrated with the water tanks, the forest vehicles, and which actually integrated with the GPS system. And when we talk about this Pench Tiger Reserve, so this Pench Tiger Reserve is located in the southern reaches of Satpura Hills. Okay, so we all knew that Vindhyas and Satpuras are located in the Madhya Pradesh, right? So when we talk about this Pench Tiger Reserve, it is located in both Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh. So therefore this reserve is located in the southern reaches of Satpura Hills. Okay, so in Madhya Pradesh, and apart from that it continues in Nagpur district in Maharashtra as a separate sanctuary also. So this is the location of this Pench Tiger Reserve. So we can say that it is located in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra as well. And another very important thing about this Pench Tiger Reserve is that it is named after the Pench River. Okay, so this particular Tiger Reserve is named after the Pench River, and this particular river flows from north to south. Okay, so this flows from the north to south through this particular Pench Tiger Reserve. And in fact this Pench Tiger Reserve comprises of Indira Priyadarshini Pench National Park and Pench Mowgli Sanctuary and a buffer area also. Okay, so in Madhya Pradesh there is also Pench National Park as well, that is Indira Priyadarshini Pench National Park. And another very important thing when we talk about this Pench Tiger Reserve, the area of the Pench Tiger Reserve and the surroundings of this particular tiger reserve. So this area is the real story area of Rudyard Kipling's famous The Jungle Book. Okay, so Rudyard Kipling's famous Jungle Book is based on this Pench Tiger Reserve. You just remember this thing. And next important topic, that it is about a recent disease. That disease is Oropoke fever. Okay, so that is Oropoke fever, and this particular fever is recently seen in Italy, or it is recently reported in Italy, right? So the first ever case of this Oropoke fever is reported in Italy, and in fact it is a mosquito borne disease. You just remember this Oropoke, first ever case of this Oropoke fever is first reported in Italy, and in fact it is a mosquito borne disease. And when we talk about this Oropoke fever, so it is a zoonotic arboviral disease. Now when we talk about this zoonotic diseases, I hope all of you knew about this zoonotic viruses. So zoonotic virus is or zoonotic disease, right? So zoonotic disease. So zoonotic disease normally constitutes a virus or bacteria or any other thing. Now they mainly spreads to human beings from animals, right? So these zoonotic diseases actually spread from animals to human beings, and such diseases are known as zoonotic diseases. And in fact COVID-19 pandemic is a zoonotic disease. So this COVID-19 pandemic is a zoonotic disease, and therefore this particular Oropoke fever is a zoonotic arboviral disease, and it is being caused by Oropoke virus. And when we talk about this OROV, right, so this Oropoke virus, it is part of Orthobunia virus family, and the incubation time of this particular fever is around 4 to 8 days, right? So what is this incubation period? So as I have already told you that it is a zoonotic disease. So once the disease, the affected mosquito, once through the affected mosquito the disease enters into the human body, from the day this pathogen enters into the human body and the day from which it started showing symptoms, that particular period is known as incubation period. Okay, so that period is known as incubation period. So the incubation period is 4 to 8 days. And in fact when we talk about the earlier discoveries of this Oropoke fever, it was first discovered in Trinidad and Tobago in 1955. So this was the first discovery of Oropoke fever. And when we talk about the transmission of this particular disease, so it spread to human beings through a bite of an infected midge, or which can be known as a small fly or a mosquito, right? So it actually spreads to human beings through the bite of an infected midge or a mosquito. And in fact as of now we have been experiencing a rapid urbanization, and rapid urbanization has been leading to the poor management of waste, municipal liquid waste and solid waste. And the poor management of liquid waste and solid waste are very often leading to the landfills, open landfills in these urban areas, and open landfills in turn have been breeding grounds for these mosquitoes, right? So there is no doubt that they are breeding grounds for these mosquitoes. And the other thing about this such diseases which are being spread or transmitted by these mosquitoes, climate change also having a key role. Climate change also playing a key role in spreading these diseases, especially in the tropical areas. And urbanization and deforestation and even climate change actually contributing to the proliferation or significant increase of such diseases. Therefore, it has been escalating the risk of transmission over a period of time, and we have seen such disease. For example, whenever these mosquitoes are, the mosquito population increases, they also increases the risk of spreading new diseases. Now, when we talk about the treatment for this particular disease, so there is no vaccine available to prevent this oropoke fever, and there is no specific treatment available for this fever, and medical care actually aims to control the symptoms, whatever symptoms we have because of this fever. So the medical treatment or medical care essentially aimed to control such symptoms and help recovery over a period of time. So that is about the oropoke disease or oropoke fever. So next important article is about the TB disease, and there is a new method of scanning. So this new method of scanning is known as PET scan. Okay, so this PET scan is positron emission tomography. So this is known as the PET scan. Positron emission tomography is known as PET scan. So this will be a new method of finding out TB or diagnosis of TB in a much more accurate and efficient manner. Right? So we all knew that tuberculosis is one of the most pressing challenge that we have been facing, especially among the developed and developing countries. Tuberculosis is one of the most pressing challenge we have been facing, because very often this tuberculosis is a chronic disease. It is caused by bacteria. Okay, so this is bacterial disease, first thing. And apart from being a bacterial disease, so it is a chronic disease. It is not a short-term disease, rather a long-term disease. So since it is a chronic disease, generally what happens is that patients need to use medicines for a longer periods of time. Okay, so patients need to use medicine for a longer period of time. So since they are using medicines for the longer period of time, what happening is this TB bacteria over a period of time developing resistance to the medicines. So it has been developing resistance to medicines. So this is a major problem, and that will lead to the XDR TB and even MDR TB. Right? So this MDR TB means multi-drug resistant TB. So TB bacteria developing resistance, making the existing drugs ineffective, right? So even if we take a medication, once we are infected with the TB, so the bacteria would be not responsive to such medication, and thereby further increasing the risk of mortality and morbidity among the people who are infected with the TB disease. And problem in countries like India, where we have a higher prevalence of TB, is poor diagnosis. The problem is poor diagnosis of this particular TB disease. So poor diagnosis, one is because of the poor healthcare infrastructure, and along with the healthcare infrastructure, we do not have a significant capacities to detect and diagnose TB at an early stage. And apart from that, the people also fear about the social stigma which is being attached with TB patients, because since it is a long-term disease, and they fear this social stigma once others get to know about the people are infected with the TB. So all these factors have been making the TB disease diagnosis poor, and when we not able to diagnose the TB disease at an early stage, so it will lead to the significant negative consequences on the people who are infected with the TB disease, because over a period of time the immunity would be deprived because of this disease, and it will also lead to the higher mortality, and people who are infected with the TB their productivity will also significantly reduces or significantly decreases. However, this TB disease developing resistance is a major challenge. Resistance is a major challenge with respect to this TB disease. So in order to deal with the antibiotic resistance of this TB, immediate diagnosis very important. Once we have diagnosed with the TB disease, we need to make the patient regularly uses medication for the immediate relief from the TB disease. So since diagnosis is very important with respect to TB disease, recently a new method of scanning for TB has been discovered by a team of scientists, a team of researchers from United Kingdom. So that method is known as the positron emission tomography method for scanning more effective treatment of TB. So once we scan this TB, so that would help us give a more effective and accurate treatment to the TB patients. Right, a more accurate way of scan for tuberculosis has been developed by researchers who are based in UK and US using this PET method or positron emission tomography method. Now when we talk about this, radio tracers are radioactive compounds. Okay, so don't forget about this radio tracers. So these radio tracers are radioactive compounds, so which actually emit or releases radiation, and this radiation which is being emitted by radio tracers can actually used to detect, or they can be detected by the scanners, and once they are detected by the scanners, they can turn this particular radiation which is being emitted into a 3D image that you can clearly see here. Right, so this radio tracers which emit radiation, this radio tracers are also called as FDT. Right, so this radio tracers are also called as FDT, and this FDT enables positron emission tomography scans to be used for the first time to accurately, pinpointedly discover the areas which are being infected by the TB disease in the lungs of the affected individuals. Okay, so currently two methods exist for TB diagnosis. What are those two methods which already exist for the TB diagnosis? So first, testing for the TB bacteria. As I have already told you that tuberculosis is caused by TB bacteria. So in order to do diagnosis of TB bacteria, one method is testing for the tuberculosis bacteria in patients' sputum. For this purpose, we generally use smear microscopy, or this test is also known as a molecular test. So this is a one way of diagnosis of tuberculosis. However, the other method of diagnosing the TB disease among the affected individual is the use of positron emission tomography scan. Okay, so positron emission tomography scan to look for the signs of inflammation in the lung. Now, whenever we talk about the tuberculosis mainly affects the lungs of the infected individual, right? So the tuberculosis mainly infects the lungs of the affected individual. So therefore, this positron emission tomography scan method is mainly used to look for the signs of inflammation, if there are any inflammation conditions in these lungs, using the common radio tracer FDG method. Okay, so the radio tracer method. Now, in fact, the sputum test can show a negative lung. Okay, so when we do this, smear microscopy test using the sputum of infected individual, so it can show us, inaccurate results about the active TB. So because imagine that one individual is infected with the tuberculosis, and when this particular individual is under medication, is regularly taking medication for the designated period, right? So when we tried to understand whether, since this individual has been regularly using medication for the TB disease, if he's still infected with the TB or not. So when we do this smear microscopy test, so this smear microscopy test can give us wrong results by saying that, despite there are a TB signs in the lungs of infected individual, this smear microscopy test can give us wrong results by saying that the infected individual is completely relieved from TB. Now then what happens? He'll stop using the medication for the TB disease, but in reality there is a still signs of TB bacteria in the lungs of infected individuals. So once he stopped the medication for the disease, again the TB would start impacting the individual because he stopped medication because of the wrong results from the smear microscopy test. However, what we require? So we require much more accurate, reliable test for tracing out the active TB signs in the lungs, and that can be done by this positron emission tomography test. Okay, so in this sputum test, it can show a negative log before the disease has been fully treated in the lungs, and that could give us that could result in patients finishing the treatment too early. And scanning for inflammation can be helpful. Under this PET method, scanning for inflammation in the lungs can be helpful in seeing the extent of the disease, but it is not specific to TB, as inflammation can be caused by other conditions also. However, this new approach which is being developed by the researchers is much more specific than this, and it also uses the carbohydrate. This particular carbohydrate is only processed by the TB bacteria. Okay, so this PET method actually produces carbohydrate as well, and this carbohydrate is only processed by the TB bacteria, and if it is still active in the lungs, and that could easily process the carbohydrate, thereby we get to know that still there are active signs of TB bacteria. However, the key advantage of this new approach is that it only requires hospital to have a standard radiation control, right? So hospitals need to have this standard radiation control machinery or techniques along with this positron emission tomography scanners. So once these hospitals or medical facilities have both standard radiation control and PET scanners, they can easily scan for the signs of active TB among the affected individuals. And in fact, both these scanners and standard radiation control techniques are now available throughout the world. And in fact, a new molecule is created from the FDG using a simple process which involves enzymes which are being developed by the research team from UK and US. Okay, so this actually means that it can be produced without the specialist expertise or laboratories, and therefore it could be a viable option for the low and middle income countries with less developed healthcare systems also. In fact, these countries, low and middle income countries, especially countries in South Asia, currently see over 80% of the global TB cases and deaths due to this particular disease, and therefore the urgent need is to prevent TB through more accurate and effective diagnosis of the TB disease. Then we can give us a better treatment for the infected individuals. Now when we talk about this tuberculosis disease, as I have already told you, it is being caused by the tuberculosis bacteria, and it mainly infects lungs of affected individuals, and it can also affect other body parts apart from the lungs once it gets infected the human beings. And the bacteria currently attacks the lungs, but this TB bacteria can attack any part of the body, such as it can attack kidney, spine, and the brain as well. So because of this, two TB related conditions exist. First is latent TB infection, and second is TB disease. And if not treated properly, this TB disease can be fatal among human beings, and it can even lead to the death among human beings. Now, what are the major symptoms of this TB disease? The major symptoms include cough, sometimes blood being produced from the cough, and weight loss, night sweats, fever, chest pain, fatigue. So all these are symptoms of a TB affected individual or TB infected individual based on the organ which is infected by the TB disease. A lot of patients who are infected with TB might not show any symptoms also. Okay, so this is about the tuberculosis, and next important article is about the Teesta River. Teesta River. Now, when we talk about this Teesta River, so it is a transboundary river between India and Bangladesh, and very often there is a dispute between West Bengal and Bangladesh over the water sharing, especially over the differences in water sharing. And we all knew that recently Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina visited India, right? So she met Prime Minister Narendra Modi on June 22nd, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, so during this particular meeting, has said that a technical team will soon visit Bangladesh to discuss conservation and management of Teesta River in Bangladesh. So this technical team from India will soon visit Bangladesh to discuss conservation and management of Teesta River in Bangladesh. And this particular statement from Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been indicating that, or it has led to the speculation that there may be a Teesta water sharing treaty between India and Bangladesh in the near future. It is pending for so long between these two countries. Okay, so in fact there is no such agreement arrived between Bangladesh and India over the water sharing of Teesta River, and that has been leading to a lot of differences between these two countries. However, both countries are eager to sign this Teesta water treaty, right? Essentially, Teesta water flows from the Indian state of West Bengal into Bangladesh. So since it has been flowing from West Bengal into the Bangladesh, it is very important for the livelihoods of the people in both Bangladesh as well as West Bengal also, right? So therefore, what is India's actual stand over this Teesta River? We need to understand the stand of India over the Teesta River. Now, the discussion between two leaders was about water sharing. Okay, so it is less about the water sharing, but it is more about the conservation and management of the water flows within the Teesta River. Okay, so it is more about the management of the water flows rather than the water sharing. That is the key focus area between these two countries. However, as I have already told you, this Teesta River originates in the north of Sikkim. So it originates in the north of Sikkim, and then it flows into the Indian state of West Bengal. Okay, so it flows into the Indian state of West Bengal, from West Bengal into Bangladesh, and from Bangladesh it merges with the the Bay of Bengal, right? So it is Bangladesh, and from this is West Bengal, and this is Bay of Bengal, right? So therefore, since it is flowing through West Bengal and Bangladesh, it is very important that the livelihoods of the people who are living on the catchment area of this river is very, very important. Okay, so therefore, imagine that on Indian side, West Bengal uses more water, so it would deprive the water and water requirements of the people who are in the lower riparian regions. Okay, so lower riparian here it is Bangladesh, lower riparian, and upper riparian is West Bengal. So therefore, in fact, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee so took issued with to the center this issue of water sharing between India and Bangladesh. She is a Chief Minister of West Bengal, and she took the issue with the center. On June 24, she actually wrote a letter to the Prime Minister Narendra Modi conveying strong reservations that no discussion on water sharing between India and Bangladesh should take place without involving West Bengal. So whenever India has been discussing Teesta water sharing with Bangladesh, West Bengal should also be included as a key stakeholder in the discussions. So that is what the West Bengals stand over the Teesta water sharing or Teesta water treaty with the Bangladesh. So that is India's stand with respect to this. Okay, so there is still no clarity over this. So what should be the role of West Bengal, and how much water would India utilizes, and how much water would be given to Bangladesh under this particular treaty? There is still no clarity over that. However, the Teesta water is shared with Bangladesh, and if Teesta water is given to the Bangladesh, if India utilizing less amount of water because it is an upper riparian state and it has a moral responsibility to make sure that the lower riparian states would also get adequate water. If Teesta water is shared with the Bangladesh, lakhs of people and their livelihoods in West Bengal, especially in North Bengal, would be severely impacted. So that is what West Bengal has been saying. And in fact, this is not the first time that West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee voiced her concern and opposition, so with respect to India's water sharing treaty with the Bangladesh. But several times she expressed her opposition to such agreement with the Bangladesh. Now when we talk about the history of India and Bangladesh and water sharing between these two countries, around 54 rivers flows through between India and Bangladesh. Okay, so both these countries share around 52 different rivers, and in fact water sharing is a key bilateral issue between these two countries. And in fact India and Bangladesh both agreed. So remember that Ganga river also flows from Indian side to Bangladesh. So therefore both India and Bangladesh agreed to share Ganga river in the year 1996. So they have agreed to share river Ganga in 1996 after the construction of Farakka barrage in West Bengal on the Indian side over river Ganga. And in fact by 2010 the issue of sharing Teesta again came to limelight, right? So on the similar lines of Ganga water sharing agreement between both these countries, so Bangladesh is very often asking India to sign this Teesta water sharing treaty. In 2011, during UPA government was in power, UPA 2 was in power, United Progressive Alliance, India and Bangladesh were so close to sign an agreement over the sharing of this Teesta river. But at that point of time also Mrs. Banerjee walked out of the deal, and since then the agreement has been pending and both these countries did not go ahead with signing of the Teesta water agreement. However, what should be the proposal of Teesta water sharing? The proposal for sharing Teesta water was drawn up, and it was said India would get around 42.5% and Bangladesh would get 37.5% of the water, and the remaining water would be natural ecological flows into the Bay of Bengal, because that is also very important to maintain the natural flows is very, very important, right? So 42.5% of the water would be utilized by India and 37.5% of the water would be utilized by the Bangladesh. And in fact when we talk about this Teesta river is a tributary of river Brahmaputra, and Teesta river originates from Lamo Lake at an elevation of around 5280 meters in northern part of Sikkim, and it originates from Lamo Lake. And apart from that, this Teesta river travels about 150 kilometers in Sikkim, and then it enters into West Bengal, and from West Bengal it enters into Bangladesh at from Mekhliganj in Coach Bihar district, and then it joins Bay of Bengal. Now Teesta river in Bangladesh is the fourth largest transboundary river, right? So this river is the fourth largest transboundary river, and its floodplain actually covers an area of around 2,750 square kilometers in Bangladesh. However, 83% of the river's catchment area lies in India, and the remaining 17% in Bangladesh itself. Now, catchment area is the area where the river actually receives its water. Okay, so that area is known as catchment area, and 83% of the catchment area lies in Indian side, and 17% of the catchment area of river Tista is located in Bangladesh. So therefore, it would supporting 8.5% of its population and 14% of its crop production on the Bangladeshi side, right? So when we talk about this political considerations, so dams for hydroelectric power generation in Sikkim and Tista barrage project at Gajol Doba in West Bengal is making the flow of the river erratic in Bangladesh. So it has been reducing the flows from Tista river into Bangladesh because of these hydroelectric projects in Sikkim and Bangladesh. So therefore, it would either leads to the floods or drought-like conditions in this Tista river area. Okay, so Tista water area. Now, when we talk about this conservation of Tista in Bangladesh, so it also comes amid the backdrop of China proposing major dredging work on the river, because it is located in the northern part of Sikkim that comes under the Chinese, area. So it has also building reservoirs and embankments in 2020. So the health of the Tista river after the construction of a series of hydropower projects in Sikkim and deforestation in upper catchment areas and impact of climate, the health has been deteriorating with respect to this Tista river. And very importantly, Article 253 of the Indian Constitution, remember this, Article 253 of the Indian Constitution actually empowers the government to enter into any transboundary, any agreement or any treaty with the neighboring countries with respect to the transboundary river water. Okay, so and between two different riparian countries, this Article 253 empowers the government to enter into any transboundary river water related treaty with the riparian state. Now, Ganga Treaty. So Ganga Water Sharing Treaty with Bangladesh completes 30 years by 2026. Remember, it was signed in the year 1996. It would complete 30 years by 2026, and a renewal of the agreement is also on the cards as well, right? So water sharing with Bangladesh has changed the Ganga river's morphology, and it also affected lakhs of people in West Bengal owing to the river erosion that has been taking place, and lakhs of people were displaced from their habitation, and it has rendered them homeless and also leading to the loss of livelihoods as well. Okay, so in fact, the reduced silt content load in Hooghly has also impeded the nourishment of Sundarban Delta as well, because the silt load is very important for the enrichment of the delta over a period of time, because it carries alluvial soil, and depositions of this alluvial soil is also very important for maintaining the fertility of these delta areas. Right, that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. So please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.